Sharon.
Hi Felix
Welcome.
and everyone else.
Welcome to Latin Junction. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
No.
So we're going to ask you a bunch of questions and let's see where we get to. So first off, you're in Sydney. Like today, where do you see the biggest differences between the Sydney and the Melbourne salsa scenes?
Ooh, big question.
We're going to go controversial straight away.
Sydney has a much larger Latin dancing, both in terms of breadth and depth. In Sydney, I would say that there's, a lot more dance styles that people are passionate about. So you've got, the usual salsa, bachata, zouk and kizomba, and then you've also got samba, you've got reggaeton, you've got a huge scene of people doing all kinds of other dance styles, and each dance style has their own niche. In Melbourne, I would say in Latin dance, it's mostly salsa dancers and bachata dancers. And then there's a small community of kizomba dancers who are very passionate and very good at what they do, but it's small. A small community of zouk and lambada dancers, a small community of samba dancers, a small community of tango dancers. So all of those dance styles have to really feed each other. So in Melbourne, you often see events that are not as big as in Sydney, or you see events that encompass all of the dance styles together. Whereas in Sydney, I think there's a lot more room to just run a kizomba night, because you can have a lot more attendees. So that's one thing, it's the range of dances. But the second thing is that I think in Sydney, there's been a lot of focus on high quality dancing. And in Melbourne, it's a very big focus on social dancing. Now, neither one is good or bad, but if you come to Sydney, you find a lot of the advanced dancers being competition dancers and performance dancers. And in Melbourne, there's actually quite a good balance of people who are at that advanced level, who are social dancers and never want to compete in their life, or the ones that actually do compete and perform. So I think the emphasis is very different as well, because I think in Melbourne there's more of a range of schools. There's social schools, there's schools for beginners to have a great time, there's schools that do focus on competition, and then in Sydney though, every school seems to do all of that. So I feel like that's the major difference.
Okay, so who's a better social dancer, Sydney or Melbourne?
I don't know. I think it's hard.
You have to choose.
Ooh. I really enjoy several of the Sydney events. I usually come up to Sydney for events. I don't really come here to social dance. So I think I don't have a good grasp because I'm going to say Sydney, but that's because I come up here when there's Latin dance events on with some of the best dancers in the world. So I'm kind of biased, the best music, the best DJs.
So it's Sydney, you're saying it's Sydney? Done.
Sure.
And so having said all that, and this is, I think, a topic that everybody discusses in terms of the Latin dance industry, where it was and where it is and where it's going. And I think like all industries and all generations, everyone tends to think that things used to be better.
Yeah.
Everyone is very nostalgic about some time, and that usually has something to do with the time that they were in their time, in their prime. So having sort of said all that, and then your comments around the competition and performance nature of things these days, in the next 5 years, where do you see things going?
Well, I think you make a very good point that people tend to believe that the heyday in which they reach the peak of their passion for dancing was the heyday for everyone else, right? So I can point back to a time where I was social dancing 5 nights a week, training for competition, dancing 25 hours a week, on top of a day job, on top of studying. And I was happy to do that because that was, for me, euphoric.
Yeah.
Now, and obviously, as with all passions and hobbies, that wanes and goes to heights, and wanes and goes to heights. Now, I think to enjoy something in the long term, you have to keep that euphoria going for yourself. And I feel that not many people know how to do that. I mean, we don't learn how to do that as children or in school. No, we don't have coaches that teach us how to keep passionate about something. And so often you'll have people who have been dancing for 6, 7, 8, 9 years who look back on when they were dancing in their second year and say, that was when dancing was the best because they found it euphoric then. Right now, yes, the focus of dance has changed in Australia and around the world. When I started dancing, there was 0 festivals in Australia in a year. There was only a handful around the world. And now there's a festival on every month, it seems, just within our country, let alone in every other city in the world. And there's a big focus on competition. The world competitions have become very popular. The Australian competitions, we've got 3 massive competitions every single year. And one of the things that I like to point out is that this doesn't make it better or worse, it's just different. And it's this kind of growth is actually necessary for the scene. If we didn't have the growth of competition and performance focus, we wouldn't have as many dancers in the scene. And if we didn't have as many dancers in the scene, we wouldn't have as many dance schools in the scene. If we didn't have as many dance schools in the scene, we wouldn't have as many events and festivals to enjoy, because the internationals would have no reason to visit Australia. So for me, I look back, to my heyday, and I think, yeah, that was really fun. But man, I didn't have YouTube to give me inspiration. I didn't have Facebook, so I could connect with all my favorite artists. I didn't have the ability to just rock up to a festival every 2 months if I wanted to do that and just enjoy dancing with some of the world's best dancers, which we can do in Australia now. So I don't think we can look at it as a good or a bad direction. I think it's just a change in direction, and you kind of have to flow with it if you're still passionate about dancing. Where is it going to go? I like to think that fashion is cyclical. Bell bottoms are coming back slowly but surely. Which
I don't know what bell bottoms are.
didn't you wear them when you were like a little bit younger than you are now?
What are they?
The bell bottom pants.
Oh, were they like flares?
Yes, flares.
Oh no, of course, I still do.
Oh.
Yeah.
No wonder Amber married you.
I don't leave the house much.
Okay, so one of the things about fashion is that it's cyclical, and dancing has its fashions too. 10 years ago, people didn't love pachanga. 10 years before that, people loved pachanga. And I think that with dancing, right now we've seen a real focus on performance and competition.
Yeah.
And I actually think the people are now going, oh, but what about social dancing all over again? And then that's going to be a cycle for a while, and then it's going to be a cycle back to performance and competition. And you know what? Maybe one day we'll have this amazing magic where all three can exist in the same
magical
sphere.
salsa time.
Coming from the perspective of someone who loves to social dance. I mean, at every festival, I am on the dance floor till the end. I don't think social dancing has gotten worse in Australia. I think people like to complain about it, but I really enjoy social dancing still. I don't know what we're complaining about. We have more dancers to dance with, more DJs, more events, more nightclubs, more festivals. How can we possibly complain? I don't believe in complaining. I just think it's great. It's great. Where we are right now is fantastic.
Very positive. Cool. And so, having sort of taking all that into account, one of the things that I find myself talking to people about, or that people talk to me about, as kind of a hobbyist, but one who's passionate about their dancing, we find a lot of the time people perhaps struggle or find a conflict between what they should focus on. And a lot of the time people focus on everything. So they want to be an amazing social dancer, they want to be an amazing performer, and they want to be doing choreos, they want to be competing, they want to be teaching sometimes. And so there's a lot of strands to being a solid dancer or a solid artist, even in a hobbyist sense. So what advice do you give to those people? Do you have a view on, should they allow themselves to just do everything at once? Should they pick something and pursue it and get their sort of strengths in it or their passions before doing something else? How do you look at this?
I think it's a combination of the two. So I've been teaching for many, many, many years, and I've been coaching for many, many years, and I've also been myself a learner for many, many years. And one of the things I will say is that you can't focus on one thing for too long because you get bored. So if I say I'm only going to focus on social dancing technique for 2 years, then I get bored, but also it's put me in a very narrow mind frame where I'm not considering how competition training can actually enhance my social dancing, or performance training can enhance my social dancing, which it absolutely can. And then on the other hand, if I just do competition routines, I then get into a mind focus where I'm not considering how learning the other things can enhance it. I don't think, however, that you can focus on 10 things at once. So I believe I give my students 6-month time frames, and I say for the next 6 months, what's the 1 or 2 things you're going to focus on in your dancing? And I don't think as well that you can focus on competition routines. Within competition, there's 25 things you have to master. Within social dancing, there's, 65 things you have to master. So I say to them, instead of thinking of your dancing as being divided into competition or performance or social dancing, how about realizing that technique is what is the underpinning thing you have to focus on in all those 3 things. So if I talk to you about technique rather than output of dancing, I think of technique as the input and output being performances or social dancing or competition. Don't think about your output, because output is arbitrary. Output is usually ego-based. You social dance because it makes you feel good. You compete because you want to win. You perform because it makes you feel beautiful on stage. I think about the input. If I had to consider your inputs, what do you focus on the next 6 months? Is it your arms? Is it your footwork? Is it your timing? Is it your rhythm? Is it your musicality? Focus on those things and you will never be bored, but it will help you in every single part of your dancing. So I always try to ask people to, rather than think about the outcome of their dancing, to really think about what they're putting into their dancing.